The clinking of silverware sounded like tiny hammers against my skull, each collision of fork against plate, sending fresh waves of pain behind my eyes. I pressed my palm against the black apron cinched too tight around my waist, feeling the knot dig into my spine. My feet screamed inside my cheap non-slip shoes. The right heel had worn through to nothing 2 weeks ago, and every step on the restaurant's marble floor sent electricity shooting up my leg. I ignored it. I'd become an expert at ignoring things. The burning in my calves from a double shift. The hollow ache in my stomach that the stolen breadsticks couldn't quite fill. The buzzing of my phone in my pocket, another debt collector, another automated voice reminding me that my mother's medical bills were now 90 days past due. It was nearly 11 p.m. on a Friday, and Bellissimo's was beginning to empty. Just the lingering tables, a group of businessmen celebrating something with too much wine, an older couple who'd been here since 7, and a lone woman scrolling through her phone, her pasta growing cold. The air smelled of garlic, expensive perfume, and the lemon polish I'd used to clean the bar top 3 times already. Anything to keep moving, to keep my hands busy, to keep my mind from drifting to the stack of envelopes I'd shoved under my bed that morning. My mother's cancer had come back, stage 4 this time. The hospice care her doctor recommended cost more than I made in 8 months, and the hospital's financial office had started sending letters in red ink. I'd stopped opening them. "Table 12 needs wine, Gwen." Marco's voice cut through my fog, sharp and impatient. He'd been the floor manager for 5 years, and his weathered face told me he'd seen 1,000 girls like me come and go, each one drowning in her own private disaster. I grabbed the bottle of Chianti and headed toward the corner booth, catching my reflection in the darkened windows. 24 years old, and I looked exhausted in a way that went bone deep. My dark hair was pulled back in a sleek ponytail, a few strands escaping to frame my face. The white collared shirt under my apron was crisp, professional, the only thing about me that didn't scream desperation. That's when the temperature in the room changed. The front door opened, and silence rippled through Bellissimo's like a stone dropped in still water. The businessmen stopped laughing mid-sentence. The couple's forks froze halfway to their mouths. Even Marco stepped back behind the bar, suddenly very interested in polishing a wine glass. The man who walked in didn't belong here. He belonged in a different world entirely. Alonso Jasper moved through the restaurant like a predator entering a henhouse. His black hair was slicked back with precision, revealing a face that could have been carved from marble, beautiful and brutal in equal measure. His white dress shirt was unbuttoned just enough to reveal the edge of dark ink crawling up his chest, intricate patterns that disappeared beneath expensive fabric. His eyes, cold and assessing, swept the room like he was cataloging threats, calculating exits, deciding who lived and who didn't matter. The tattoos on his hands were impossible to miss. They wrapped around his knuckles, coiled up his wrists, symbols I didn't recognize, but that made my pulse quicken anyway. This was a man who'd earned every mark on his skin through violence. He sat at table 12, my table. I approached with the wine bottle, keeping my expression neutral, my hands steady despite the way my heart hammered against my ribs. I'd served demanding customers before, rude ones, drunk ones, but never someone who radiated danger like heat from a furnace. "Good evening, sir. Our special tonight." "I didn't come here for food." His voice was smoke and gravel, the kind of voice that gave orders and expected them to be followed. He didn't look at me, just at the empty chair across from him, as though he was waiting for someone who'd never arrive. I poured the wine. My hands were steadier than they should have been. That's when I saw it. On his right hand, the ring finger, a signet ring. Heavy gold, old, engraved with a crest I'd seen before. A lion and a dagger crossed beneath a crown. The craftsmanship was archaic, the kind of piece that got passed down through generations, that carried weight beyond its metal. My breath caught. The wine bottle tilted in my hand, and for a moment I forgot where I was, forgot the ache in my feet, forgot everything except the certainty crashing through me like ice water. I'd seen that ring before. In my mother's jewelry box, the one she kept locked in her closet and thought I didn't know about. The one she clutched during her worst pain episodes, whispering names I'd never heard. "Sir," the word came out before I could stop it, firm and clear. I pointed at his hand, my finger steady even as my world tilted. "My mother has a ring exactly like yours." Alonso Jasper's head snapped up. For the first time since he'd entered, he actually looked at me, really looked, and what I saw in his face made my blood run cold. The color drained from his features. His jaw tightened. Those predator's eyes widened with something I never expected to see from a man like him. Shock, raw, unfiltered shock. And beneath it, something even more terrifying, recognition. The wine bottle slipped from my numb fingers, red liquid spreading across white tablecloth like blood. But neither of us moved. Neither of us looked away. Because in that moment, we both understood the same impossible truth. My ordinary life, my invisible existence as a waitress drowning in debt, all of it was a lie. And the man sitting in front of me, this ruthless stranger who wore violence like cologne, he was about to rip that lie apart with his bare hands. Welcome back to the channel. Before we dive into this tale of secrets and power, I want to know, where are you watching from and what time is it there? Drop it in the comments below. Also, hit that like button and subscribe if you're ready for the truth, because what happens next will change everything. Alonso didn't move. For 3 heartbeats, he just stared at me with those cold, calculating eyes, and I realized with sudden clarity that I'd made a terrible mistake. You didn't point at men like this. You didn't speak to them unless spoken to. You certainly didn't make observations about their jewelry. "Everyone out!" His voice cut through the restaurant like a blade. Not loud. He didn't need to be loud. The 2 words carried enough weight to make the remaining diners freeze mid-bite. "Sir, I'm sorry, I didn't mean," I started, but he raised one tattooed hand and I went silent. "I said everyone out." This time he stood, and the movement was liquid, controlled. He didn't look at anyone else, just kept those dark eyes locked on me while the restaurant emptied around us. The businessmen threw cash on their table and practically ran. The elderly couple shuffled out with frightened backward glances. Even Marco disappeared into the kitchen without a word, and I heard the back door slam a moment later. In less than 2 minutes, we were alone. The silence pressed against my eardrums. My pulse hammered in my throat. This was wrong, all wrong. I should run, should scream, should do something other than stand here clutching an empty wine bottle like it might protect me. "Sit," he gestured to the chair across from him. "I have to clean up the—" "Sit down, Gwen." My legs gave out. I didn't remember telling him my name, but of course he'd know. Men like him always knew. I sank into the chair, still holding the bottle because I didn't know what else to do with my hands. He leaned forward, elbows on the table, and the tattoos on his forearms seemed to writhe in the dim light. Up close, I could see they were intricate, symbols and dates and names woven together in dark ink. A history written on skin. "Your mother's name, tell me." "I don't understand what." "Her name." His voice dropped to something dangerous, something that made my survival instincts scream. "Now." Elena Atkins." The words tumbled out before I could stop them, but I don't see what that has to. His expression cracked. Just for a second, the mask of cold control slipped, and what I saw underneath was worse than anger. It was grief. Old grief, the kind that had calcified into something harder than bone. "Elena Atkins." He repeated it like a prayer or a curse, I couldn't tell which. Then he laughed, a sound with no humor in it. "She kept her maiden name. Of course she did. Smart woman always was." He looked at me again, and this time I saw him cataloging my features with a different kind of intensity. My eyes, my nose, the shape of my jaw. "How old are you?" 24. 24? Another humorless laugh. He pulled his phone from his pocket, dialed a number. "Dante, clear the perimeter of Bellissimos. No one comes in, no one looks in the windows." "I don't care if you have to buy the whole block. Do it now." He ended the call without waiting for a response. My hands started shaking. "I should go. My shift ends at—" "Your shift is over. Your life as you knew it is over." He stood, came around the table, and before I could move, his hand was on my arm. Not painfully, but firmly enough that I knew I wasn't going anywhere he didn't want me to go. "We're going to see your mother. Now, you're going to take me to her, and then we're going to have a conversation that's 24 years overdue." "I'm not going anywhere with you." I tried to pull away, but his grip tightened just enough to make his point. "Yes, you are. Because in about 5 minutes, every family in this city that wants me dead is going to know I just shut down a public restaurant to talk to a waitress. They're going to want to know why. They're going to find out who you are." He pulled me closer, and I could smell him now. Expensive cologne, whiskey, and something metallic underneath. Gunpowder, maybe. "And then they're going to try to hurt you to get to me. So you're coming with me for your protection, whether you like it or not." "Protection from what? You're not making any sense. I don't even know who you are." "Yes, you do." He steered me toward the door, his other hand reaching into his jacket. For one terrible moment I thought he was going for a gun, but he pulled out a wallet instead, flipped it open. Inside was a photograph, old and faded. A young woman with dark hair and my eyes, laughing at the camera. Next to her, a younger version of the man dragging me through the restaurant without the hardness, without the tattoos. They were holding hands. "You know exactly who I am. You've known since the moment you saw this ring." The night air hit my face like a slap. A black SUV idled at the curb, windows tinted, engine running. The door was already open. I could see men in suits standing at intervals down the block, radios in their hands, weapons bulging under their jackets. "My mother is sick," I said, trying one last time. "She has cancer she can't handle." "I know she's sick. I've known for 3 months." He guided me into the SUV, slid in beside me. "I've been paying for her treatments through a shell company. The experimental therapy, the hospice consultations, all of it. You think you've been drowning in debt? You should have been drowning twice as deep. I've been keeping her alive, Gwen, keeping both of you afloat while I tried to decide what to do about the family I didn't know existed." The door slammed shut. The SUV pulled away from the curb, and through the window I watched Bellissimos disappear into the night. My apron was still tied around my waist. My time card was still punched in. My entire life was in that building, small and sad and mine, and this stranger was taking me away from it like I weighed nothing. "My name is Alonso Jasper," he said quietly, almost gently. "And if your mother has that ring, then 24 years ago she was Alina Jasper, my wife." He turned to look at me, and in his eyes I saw the truth I'd been running from since the moment I'd pointed at his hand. "Which makes you my daughter. And in my world, that makes you the most valuable target in this entire city. So yes, Gwen, we're going to see your mother. And then you're going to learn exactly what it means to be a Jasper." The apartment building looked worse at night. Graffiti crawled up the sides like ivy, and the security door hung off one hinge, offering about as much protection as a paper umbrella in a hurricane. I'd lived here for 3 years, in a studio on the 4th floor that cost half my paycheck and still managed to be both too hot in summer and too cold in winter. It was all I could afford and keep Mom and her medication. "This is where you've been living." Alonso's voice was flat, emotionless, but I caught the muscle jumping in his jaw as we climbed the stairs. His men flanked us, 2 in front, 2 behind, their presence making the narrow stairwell feel even smaller. "Not all of us have blood money to throw around," I snapped, exhaustion and fear making me reckless. My keys rattled in my shaking hands as I tried to unlock the door to 4B. He pushed past me, reached for the handle. "Wait, you can't just." The door exploded inward with a sound like thunder. Alonso had kicked it once, and the cheap lock gave way like it was made of cardboard. The door slammed against the interior wall, and I heard my mother's startled cry from the bedroom. "Mom!" I shoved past him, past his men, into the tiny apartment that suddenly felt even smaller with 5 bodies filling it. The living room was barely 10 feet across, my thrift store couch pressed against one wall, a folding table serving as both desk and dining area. Everything was clean, organized, pathetically neat in the way of people who can't afford to lose anything. My mother appeared in the bedroom doorway, wrapped in her bathrobe, her face pale and gaunt from the latest round of chemo. She'd lost more weight since I'd left for my shift. The oxygen tube looped around her ears, connected to the portable tank she dragged everywhere now. Her dark hair, the same shade as mine, had thinned to wisps. Then she saw Alonso. The color that was left drained from her face completely. The oxygen tank clattered to the floor. "No," the word was a whisper, a prayer, a denial. "No, no, no." "Hello, Alina?" Alonso's voice was different now, rougher, like something was caught in his throat. He took a step forward and his men stayed back, understanding without being told that this moment wasn't for them. Been a long time. "You can't be here, you can't." She looked at me, and the terror in her eyes made my stomach drop. "Gwen, get away from him, get out, run." "Mom, what's happening? Who is he?" "I'm your father." Alonso said it simply, like he was commenting on the weather. Though I'm guessing she never mentioned that. My mother grabbed the doorframe for support. For a moment I thought she might collapse, but then something changed in her face. The fear crystallized into something harder, colder. "Get out of my home." "Your home?" Alonso looked around the apartment with something like disgust. "This rat trap that's killing you as surely as the cancer. This is what you chose instead of me." "I chose life for my daughter." The words erupted from her, decades of silence breaking like a dam. "I chose a life where she didn't watch her father murder people at the dinner table, where she didn't grow up learning to check under cars for bombs, where she could be normal, have normal dreams, not wake up wondering if today was the day someone would kill her to get revenge on you." "You didn't give me a choice." Alonso's control was fracturing. I could see it in the way his hands clenched, the way his breathing had gone shallow. "You just disappeared, vanished in the middle of the night like you meant nothing, like what we had meant nothing. What we had was built on corpses." My mother's laugh was bitter, broken. "I loved you, God help me, I loved you so much it nearly destroyed me, but I wasn't going to let it destroy her." She pointed at me with a shaking hand. "The night I left, I heard you on the phone, ordering the execution of the Morty family, all of them, Alonso, even the children, you said." Her voice cracked. "You said there could be no loose ends, no Morty left alive to grow up seeking revenge." The silence that followed was suffocating. Alonso didn't deny it. He just stood there, his jaw tight, his eyes dark with old memory. "I was 8 months pregnant," my mother continued, quieter now. "Standing outside your office, listening to you order the death of a 3-year-old boy. And I realized that's what my daughter would become, either a monster like you or a target for monsters like you. So I ran." "You should have trusted me." His voice was raw now, stripped of its earlier command. "I would have protected you both." "Protected us? You can't even protect yourself. Look at you." She gestured to his tattoos, his scars, the hardness that radiated from him like heat. "You're a walking target. Every mark on your skin is a murder. Every day you wake up is borrowed time. How many assassination attempts this year alone? 5, 10. 7, he said quietly. 7 attempts, 3 of them got close. And now she's involved." My mother looked at me, tears streaming down her hollow cheeks. 24 years. I kept her hidden for 24 years. She was supposed to be free." "She was never free." Alonso turned to me, and I saw something in his face that made my breath catch. Regret, maybe, or grief. "The moment you pointed at that ring, every camera in that restaurant captured it. Every family watching me, every rival looking for weakness, they saw it too. By morning, every criminal enterprise in this city will know you exist. Alina ran to save you from my life, Gwen. But you just walked right back into it." My mother's legs gave out. I caught her before she hit the floor, lowered her onto the couch. Her oxygen tank hissed beside us, the sound too loud in the terrible quiet. "Then we run again," she whispered. "Like before, we disappear." "You can barely walk across a room," Alonso said, not unkindly. "And she has no training, no protection, no understanding of what's coming. You want to run, they'll find you in a week, and they won't just kill you quick." He knelt down, looked my mother in the eyes. "I never abandoned you, Alina, you left me. But I'm here now, and I'm not letting either of you die because you're too proud to accept my help." My mother stared at him for a long moment, then closed her eyes. When she opened them again, she looked older than I'd ever seen her. "What do you want?" "Both of you, under my roof, under my protection." He glanced at me. "And Gwen learns how to survive what's coming, because it's coming whether you like it or not." The Jasper estate sat behind iron gates 20 minutes outside the city, the kind of property that didn't appear on normal maps. We drove up a private road lined with security cameras disguised as decorative lights. past guard stations hidden in carefully manicured landscaping. My mother sat beside me in the SUV, her oxygen tank between us, her hand gripping mine so tightly I'd lost feeling in my fingers 10 minutes ago. "This is temporary," she kept whispering. "Just until we figure something out, just temporary." But I could see in her eyes she knew the truth. Nothing about this was temporary. The house, no mansion, rose out of the darkness like something from another world. 3 stories of stone and glass, lit from within by warm light that made it look almost welcoming. Almost. The fountain in the circular driveway featured a bronze lion, the same symbol from the ring, a reminder of what ruled here. Alonso's men ushered us inside, and my mother needed help up the front steps. She hated that, I could tell. Hated showing weakness in this place in front of him, but the chemo had stolen so much from her already. Pride was a luxury she couldn't afford. The entry hall could have swallowed our entire apartment. Marble floors, crystal chandelier, a curved staircase that looked like it belonged in a movie. Oil paintings lined the walls, old family portraits, stern-faced men and women who probably earned their wealth the same way Alonso did, through blood. "The medical wing is in the east section," Alonso said, addressing my mother without looking at her, like it hurt too much to look directly. "I've had it staffed around the clock. Dr. Ramires is one of the best oncologists in the country. She's waiting to examine you." "I have a doctor." "You have a resident at a public hospital who sees you for 10 minutes between 30 other patients." Now he did look at her, and his expression was harder. "Dr. Ramires will see only you. She has access to treatments your insurance company won't cover because they're too expensive. Experimental drugs, clinical trials, things that might actually give you more than 6 months. My mother's grip on my hand tightened. 6 months. He'd said it so casually, but it hit me like a fist to the chest. 6 months. Was that all she had? "I can't pay for." "You're not paying for anything." He turned to me. "Neither of you are. All your medical bills, the debt collectors, the hospital liens, they're gone. I had my lawyers handle it while we drove here. Your credit is clean. Your bank account has enough for 6 months of living expenses. If you want to walk out that door right now, you can. But..." "There's always a but with you," my mother said bitterly. "But you won't survive a week." He gestured to a set of doors that slid open, revealing an office with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves and a desk that probably cost more than a year of my wages. "Sit, both of you. There are things you need to understand." We sat, my mother in a leather chair, me on the couch beside her. Alonso moved to his desk, pressed something on his computer, and the wall behind him lit up with a screen. Images flashed across it. Surveillance photos, news articles, crime scene photos that made my stomach turn. "This is my world," he said quietly. 5 major crime families control the city. The Jaspers, my family, control the north side. Shipping, unions, construction, legal businesses with illegal foundations. We're not the biggest, but we're the most disciplined. We follow rules, codes. There are things we don't do. He clicked to another image, a man with cold eyes and a scarred face. "Julian Vane runs the Vane family. South Side. Drugs, human trafficking, contract killing. They don't have rules. They don't have codes. If they find out you exist, Alina, if they find out I have a daughter." "They'll use us as leverage," I said, my voice sounding distant to my own ears. The crime scene photos were still burned into my vision. Bodies, so many bodies. "They'll do worse than that." He closed the screen and the wall went dark. "Vane has been looking for a weakness in my organization for 5 years. He's tried to infiltrate my businesses, turn my men, assassinate me 7 times. Nothing has worked. But a daughter, an heir I've suddenly discovered." He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "That's not a weakness. That's a nuclear bomb he'll want to detonate." "Then let us go," my mother said. "We'll disappear again, change our names, move across the country." "With what money? Your savings are gone. You can't work. Gwen makes minimum wage plus tips." He leaned against his desk, crossed his arms. "And that's assuming they don't find you first, which they will. I shut down a public restaurant last night. Security footage of Gwen has already made its way to every family in the city. They're running facial recognition right now, pulling up every record, every address. By tomorrow morning, they'll know where you live." By tomorrow afternoon, they'll know your mother's medical history, where she gets treatment, what pharmacy you use. The room felt too small suddenly, despite its size. I couldn't breathe. This couldn't be real. 24 hours ago, my biggest problem was whether I could afford both rent and Mom's medication. Now I was sitting in a mansion learning about crime families and assassination attempts. "So what do you want?" I asked. My voice came out steadier than I felt. "What's the real offer?" Alonso looked at me, really looked at me, and I saw something shift in his expression. Approval, maybe, or recognition. "You both live here, full security, full medical care. Alina gets the treatment she needs. Gwen, you learn the business. You learn to protect yourself. You learn what it means to be a Jasper." "I don't want to be a Jasper." "You already are. The moment you said my mother has a ring like yours, you became one." He pushed off from the desk, moved closer. "I'm not asking you to kill anyone. I'm not asking you to break laws. I'm asking you to survive. To let me teach you how to see threats before they materialize, how to read people, how to know when someone wants to hurt you." "And if we refuse?" my mother asked. "Then I'll put you both on a plane to somewhere far away with enough money to start over. But I can't guarantee your safety. I can't protect what I can't see." He looked between us. "And in 6 months, Alina, when the cancer takes you, Gwen will be alone. No family, no protection, no understanding of who might come looking for her." The cruelty of it was in how reasonable it sounded, how logical. Stay here, accept his help, learn his world, or leave and hope that 24 years of hiding was enough. Hope that my one moment of recognition hadn't condemned us both. My mother was crying silently, tears tracking down her hollow cheeks. I squeezed her hand. "How long?" I asked. "How long do we have to stay?" "Until you're ready." Alonso's expression was unreadable. "Until I know you can handle what's out there. Could be 6 months, could be 6 years." "That's not an offer. That's a prison sentence." "No," he said quietly. "A prison sentence ends. This is your life now, Gwen. The only question is whether you want to live it prepared or live it waiting to die." My new bedroom was larger than our entire apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked gardens that probably required a full-time staff. A king-sized bed sat on a platform like a throne, and the walk-in closet had more square footage than the restaurant kitchen where I'd scraped plates just 2 days ago. The bathroom had heated floors and a shower with 6 different heads. There was a sitting area with a fireplace. In a bedroom. I stood in the middle of it all, still wearing my waitress uniform because I hadn't brought anything else, and felt like an actor who'd wandered onto the wrong set. A knock at the door made me jump, before I could answer. A woman in her 50s entered, carrying what looked like a garment bag over each arm. She had sharp eyes and perfectly styled silver hair, wearing a black dress that probably cost more than my car. "Miss Jasper," she said, and the name sounded wrong coming from her mouth. I wasn't Miss Jasper. I was Gwen who couldn't afford health insurance and ate ramen for dinner 4 nights a week. "I'm Margaret. I manage the household staff. Your father asked me to help you get settled." "I don't need help." "Nevertheless." She hung the garment bags in the closet, unzipped the first one. Inside was a navy blue dress, simple but elegant, the kind of thing I'd seen on women who lunched at Bellissimo's and left 20% tips. "You'll need appropriate attire for dinner tonight. Your father entertains business associates most evenings." "I'm not hungry." "It's not optional." Her tone was polite but firm, the voice of someone used to being obeyed. "Dinner is at 7. The first bag has daytime options, the second is for evenings. A stylist will arrive tomorrow morning to take your measurements for a full wardrobe. Shoes are in the closet, sized based on your employment records." Of course they had my employment records. They probably had my 3rd-grade report cards, too. Margaret left me alone with a closet full of clothes I didn't ask for and a life I didn't choose. I stripped off the black apron, the white shirt that smelled like restaurant grease, the cheap slacks with the stain on the knee I'd never quite gotten out. In the mirror, a full-length mirror with actual lighting around it, I looked pale, tired, ordinary. Someone who served people, not someone who got served. I pulled on the navy dress. It fit perfectly. Of course it did. Everything in this place was perfect, calculated, controlled. I found shoes that matched, heels higher than I'd ever worn, and walked to the mirror. The person looking back at me was a stranger. Polished, expensive, empty. At 7, I made my way downstairs, following the sound of voices to a dining room that could seat 20. The table was set for 8, crystal glasses catching the light from another massive chandelier. Alonso sat at the head, dressed in a black suit, his tattoos hidden except for the ones on his hands. Around him sat 5 men I didn't recognize, all wearing similar expensive suits, all carrying themselves with the same careful awareness of their surroundings. Alonso's eyes found me, traveled from my face to the dress to the shoes and back. Something flickered in his expression, satisfaction, maybe, or possession. "Gentlemen, this is my daughter, Gwen. Gwen, these are my captains. They run different aspects of our operations." The men stood, murmured greetings that felt more like assessments. I could feel them cataloging me, deciding if I was an asset or a liability. I took the empty chair to Alonso's right because there wasn't anywhere else to sit. Dinner was served by silent staff who appeared and disappeared like ghosts. The food was excellent, some kind of fish I couldn't identify, vegetables I'd never seen at the grocery store, wine that probably cost more per glass than I made in a day. The conversation flowed around me, carefully coded. The shipment from Philadelphia was drugs or weapons. The labor dispute at the docks was a union they controlled. The problem with the Martinez account was someone who owed money they couldn't pay. I pushed food around my plate and tried not to exist too loudly. Then one of the captains, a man named Vincent with gray at his temples and cold eyes, said something that made the table go quiet. "We have a problem with Carlo." Alonso set down his wine glass with careful precision. "What kind of problem?" "The kind where he's been talking to the feds. Wiretaps picked up 3 calls to an agent named Morrison. Carlo's giving them details about the port operations." The silence that followed was absolute. Even the staff in the corners seemed to stop breathing. "You're certain?" Alonso's voice was perfectly calm, perfectly controlled, and somehow that made it more terrifying than if he'd shouted. "Dante confirmed it an hour ago. Carlo's turned. He's probably wearing a wire right now." Alonso stood slowly, pulled his phone from his pocket, typed something. 30 seconds later, the dining room doors opened and 2 men dragged someone inside. He was young, maybe 30, with terrified eyes and a split lip already bleeding. Carlo, I assumed. "Please, boss, I can explain." Carlo's words came out in a rush. "Gwen," Alonso's voice cut through the pleading, "you should go upstairs." I started to stand, grateful for the escape, but something in me resisted. Some instinct that said if I ran now, I'd always be running. If I looked away from this, I'd never understand what I was really part of. "No." Alonso turned to me, surprised. "This isn't something you need to see." "You said I needed to learn what it means to be a Jasper." My voice was steadier than my hands. "So teach me." He studied me for a long moment, then nodded once. To his men, he said, "Hold him." What happened next lasted maybe 3 minutes but felt like hours. Alonso questioned Carlo in that same calm voice while his men held the traitor down. Carlo confessed everything through broken sobs, the FBI agent's name, the deal they'd offered, the information he'd given. When it was done, Alonso pulled a gun from somewhere beneath his jacket, pressed it against Carlo's temple, and pulled the trigger. The sound was deafening in the enclosed space. Carlo dropped like his strings had been cut. Blood pooled on the marble floor, spreading toward my new expensive shoes. I didn't scream, didn't look away, didn't even blink. Alonso handed the gun to one of his men, pulled out a handkerchief, wiped his hands. "Someone clean this up. Vincent, I want Morrison's entire surveillance operation identified by morning. If there are other wires, I want them found." He looked at me. "You can go now, Gwen." I stood on shaking legs, walked past the body, past the blood, past the men who just witnessed a murder over dinner. In the hallway, I made it 3 steps before my legs gave out. I slid down the wall, wrapped my arms around my knees, and stared at nothing. This was my life now. Designer dresses and heated floors and executions between courses. Margaret found me there 20 minutes later, helped me to my feet without comment, guided me back to my beautiful prison of a bedroom. I caught sight of myself in the mirror again, same dress, same face, but something behind my eyes had changed. I looked like I belonged here now. That was the most terrifying part. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Carlo's face, heard the sound of the gunshot echoing through my skull. By the time dawn broke through my windows, I'd made a decision. If I was going to survive in this world, I needed to be more than a pretty face in a designer dress. I needed to be dangerous. I found Alonso in his office at 6 a.m, already dressed, already working. He looked up when I entered without knocking, one eyebrow raised at my audacity. "Teach me." The words came out harder than I'd intended. "You said I need to survive, so teach me how." He leaned back in his chair, studying me. "What exactly do you think I'm going to teach you?" "How to do what you did last night. How to look at someone like that and pull the trigger without flinching. How to be something other than a victim waiting to happen. You want to learn how to kill people." His voice was flat, unreadable. "I want to learn how to not die." I stepped closer to his desk, planted my hands on the surface. "You said they're coming for me, that every family in this city sees me as leverage. Fine, but I'm not going to be some helpless damsel who needs protecting every second. I'm not going to be the weakness that gets you killed." Something shifted in his expression. Approval, maybe, or recognition. He stood, came around the desk. "Training starts in 1 hour, don't be late." The gym was in the basement, a massive space with weight equipment, punching bags, and a padded fighting ring. Alonso was already there when I arrived, changed into black athletic clothes that made the tattoos on his arms stand out like brands. A man I didn't recognize stood beside him, built like a tank, with a broken nose that had healed crooked and eyes that had seen too much violence. "This is Marcus, former Marine, now my head of security. He's going to teach you hand-to-hand combat." Alonso gestured to a table covered in weapons. "I'm going to teach you how to shoot." The next 4 hours were agony. Marcus didn't believe in going easy on me. He showed me how to fall without breaking my wrists, how to block a punch, how to use someone's weight against them. Then he practiced on me, and I hit the mat so many times I lost count. My body screamed. My muscles trembled. But every time I wanted to quit. I saw Carlo's blood spreading across that marble floor and pushed myself up again. When Marcus finally called a break, I could barely stand. Alonso handed me a bottle of water, gestured toward the weapons table. "Now the real lesson." He picked up a handgun, checked it with practiced efficiency, handed it to me. The weight surprised me. It was heavier than I'd expected, cold metal that seemed to pulse with potential violence. "First rule, never point a gun at anything you don't intend to kill. Second rule, if you draw this weapon, you better be ready to use it. Hesitation will get you killed." He moved behind me, adjusted my grip, my stance. His hands on my arms were firm, professional, but I could feel the controlled strength in them. These were hands that had killed. "The gun doesn't make you powerful. Your willingness to use it does." We spent 2 hours on the range. My ears rang despite the protection. My hands shook from the recoil. But by the end, I could hit the target more often than not. Not perfect, but better than helpless. When we finished, Alonso dismissed Marcus and gestured for me to follow him to the gym's small office. Inside was a first aid kit, bottles of water, and a leather chair that had seen better days. He pointed to the chair and I collapsed into it, grateful. "You did well today." He opened the first aid kit, pulled out supplies. Better than I expected. "I'm not fragile." "No, you're not." He knelt in front of me, started cleaning the scrapes on my hands where I'd caught myself during falls. His touch was surprisingly gentle. "But you're also not a killer, Gwen. Not yet, maybe not ever. That's not a weakness." "You killed Carlo without blinking." "I've had 20 years of practice." He wrapped gauze around my palm, secured it with tape. "Every person I've killed is written here." He tapped his forearm, where the tattoos wound around his skin like vines. "This is my history, my sins. Every mark is a name, a date, a choice I can never take back." I looked closer at the ink I'd only glimpsed before. Now I could see the details, Roman numerals woven through symbols, initials hidden in the designs, dates that stretched back decades. How many? 43. He said it without hesitation, without shame. 43 people who threatened my family, my business, my life. Some deserved it, some probably didn't, but they're all dead and I'm still here, so I guess I made the right choices. He moved to my other hand, started cleaning fresh scrapes. This is what you're asking for when you say you want to learn. This weight, this history. What's this one? I pointed to a symbol on his inner wrist, a serpent eating its own tail. My first kill, 17 years old, a rival soldier who came after my father. I shot him in an alley behind a restaurant while people ate dinner 10 feet away. He finished with my hand, sat back. You want to know what I felt? Relief. Because it was him or me and I chose me. That's what this life is, Gwen. A series of choices where someone has to die and you decide it won't be you. Did Mom know? About the tattoos, the kills, all of it? She knew. His expression darkened. She tried to save me, thought love could redeem me, make me something different. But you can't wash away blood once it's on your hands. She figured that out when she was pregnant with you. Realized you'd grow up around this, become this. He gestured to himself, to the tattoos, to everything he represented. So she ran. Do you blame her? Every single day. He stood, offered me his hand to pull me up. And I understand completely. Both things are true. I let him help me to my feet, my muscles protesting every movement. If I do this, if I keep training, will I end up like you, covered in tattoos and sins I can't erase? I don't know. His honesty was brutal. But if you don't train, you'll end up dead. So which would you rather be? A monster who survives or a good person who doesn't? I thought about my mother upstairs, hooked to machines that were keeping her alive with Alonso's money. About Carlo's blood on the marble. About the ring on Alonso's finger that matched the one my mother kept hidden for 24 years. About the life I'd lost and the life I'd been forced into. When do we train again? I asked. He smiled and it wasn't kind. Tomorrow, 5 a.m., don't be late. 6 weeks of training had changed my body. My hands had calluses now instead of blisters. My arms had definition from hours on the range. I could take Marcus down 2 times out of 10, which he said was respectable for someone who'd never thrown a punch before January. But nothing in the gym prepared me for the dress Margaret laid out on my bed. It was midnight blue, nearly black, with a neckline that plunged lower than anything I'd ever worn. The fabric clung in ways that made it clear this wasn't about comfort. It was about armor of a different kind. Diamonds hung from the hanger beside it, a necklace that probably cost more than my mother's hospital bills. The annual charity gala, Margaret explained, smoothing invisible wrinkles from the dress. All 5 families attend, neutral ground, no violence permitted under the old codes. She paused. In theory. And in practice. In practice, Miss Jasper, it's where wars get started with a handshake and a smile. 2 hours later, I stood in the grand ballroom of the Meridian Hotel, champagne in hand, feeling like an imposter playing dress-up. The room glittered with wealth and danger in equal measure. Women in gowns that cost more than cars. Men in tuxedos with bulges under their jackets that weren't cell phones. Everyone smiled. Everyone lied. Everyone watched everyone else like predators circling prey. Alonso kept me close, his hand occasionally touching the small of my back, a gesture of both protection and possession. He'd introduced me to a dozen people whose names I'd already forgotten, each one looking at me with the same calculating interest. The lost daughter, the secret heir, the newest piece on the board. You're doing well, he murmured during a lull in conversation. Just keep smiling and let me do the talking. I know how to talk to people. I was a waitress, remember? This isn't the same as taking orders. His eyes scan the room constantly, tracking threats. These people will smile while they plan your funeral. That's when I saw him. He moved through the crowd like oil on water, parting people with his presence alone. Tall, lean, dressed in a white tuxedo that made him stand out like a ghost among the sea of black. His dark hair was styled with deliberate carelessness, and his face was beautiful in the way poisonous things are beautiful, attractive until you get close enough to die. Julian Vane. I knew him from the surveillance photos Alonso had shown me. The scarred face from the images had been wrong, though. Vane's face was unmarked, aristocratic, with sharp cheekbones and a mouth that curved into a smile that never reached his cold gray eyes. "Alonso," Vane's voice carried across the space between us, smooth as aged whiskey. "I heard rumors you'd come out of hiding. Brought a guest, I see." Every person within earshot suddenly found reasons to be elsewhere. The crowd melted away, leaving us in a bubble of tense silence. Alonso's hand on my back pressed harder, a warning. "Vane," Alonso's voice was neutral, controlled. "Enjoying the party?" "Immensely, though I have to say I'm curious about your companion." Vane's eyes traveled over me like I was merchandise he was considering purchasing. "She looks familiar. Do I know you, sweetheart?" The condescension in "sweetheart" made my jaw tighten. "I don't believe we've met." Maybe I've seen you somewhere before. Do you work in the city?" His smile widened. "You have that look about you. Service industry, perhaps." Alonso's entire body tensed beside me. I felt the shift, the coiling of violence ready to strike. But I stepped forward slightly, putting myself between them, and spoke before he could. "I was a waitress, actually, at Bellissimo's. Maybe you ate there once, though I doubt it. We had standards about who we let in." Vane's expression flickered, surprise, then amusement. "A waitress? How delightfully pedestrian. And now here you are, dressed in Valentino, wearing diamonds that could feed a family for a year. Quite the upgrade. Tell me, does Alonso make you bring him drinks in bed, or has he moved past those particular fantasies?" I felt Alonso move, saw his hand go to his jacket, but I caught his wrist, held it firm, and kept my eyes locked on Vane. "I'm his daughter, actually, Gwen Jasper, and I'd be careful about insulting my family unless you want to find out exactly what kind of standards we maintain." The room had gone completely silent. Even the orchestra seemed to be playing quieter, as if afraid to miss what happened next. Vane's smile froze. His eyes darted to Alonso, then back to me. "Reassessing. Daughter, how fascinating. I didn't realize you had any children, Alonso. Though I suppose 24 years ago you were sloppy about a lot of things. Does your mother know you're playing dress-up with criminals, sweetheart? Or is she too busy dying in some charity ward to care?" Alonso's gun was halfway out before I stepped directly in front of him, my back to Vane, my hands on Alonso's chest. "Don't." My voice was low, urgent. "That's exactly what he wants. Neutral ground, remember? You shoot him here, you break the old codes. Every family will have justification to move against us." "He insulted your mother." Alonso's voice was pure violence, barely contained. "He insulted you. With words, he's trying to provoke you into doing something stupid." I kept my hands firm on his chest, feeling his heart hammering beneath the expensive fabric. "Don't give him the satisfaction." For 3 seconds that felt like hours, Alonso stared at me. Then, slowly, he holstered the gun. But when he looked past me at Vane, his expression promised death. "You get one mistake, Julian. That was it." Alonso's voice carried across the silent ballroom. "Next time you mention my daughter or her mother, neutral ground won't save you. The old codes won't save you. Nothing will save you." Vane's smile had gone brittle. He'd gotten his reaction, but not the one he'd wanted. And now everyone in the room knew that the infamous Alonso Jasper had a daughter he'd kill for. "Looking forward to it, old friend. Give my regards to Alina. I hope she's comfortable." He walked away, and the crowd slowly came back to life around us. Conversations resumed. The orchestra played louder, but I could feel eyes on us, assessing what had just happened, calculating what it meant. Alonso's hand found mine, squeezed hard enough to hurt. "We're leaving." "Not yet." I took a breath, steadied myself. "If we leave now, everyone will think we're running. That Vane got to us." "He did get to us." "He got to you, but I stopped you from making a mistake. That's what they need to see." I lifted my champagne glass, took a sip like my hands weren't shaking. "So we stay for another hour, we smile. We show them that Julian Vane is an irritation, not a threat." Alonso stared at me like he was seeing me for the first time. Then, incredibly, he laughed. "You stopped me from killing a man. In public. Do you have any idea how many people have tried that over the years?" How many? None successfully, until tonight. He took the champagne from my hand, drained it in one swallow. 1 hour. Then we go home and I teach you how to really hurt someone, because next time we see Vane, neutral ground won't matter. We stayed for exactly 60 minutes. I smiled until my face hurt, made small talk with people whose names I'd never remember, and pretended I couldn't feel Julian Vane's eyes following me across the ballroom. But I could, and I knew, with the certainty of someone who just made a powerful enemy, that tonight had changed everything. The war Alonso had been trying to avoid was coming. And somehow, I just fired the first shot. The attack came 3 days after the gala, in the middle of the afternoon when I was supposed to be safe. I'd been visiting one of the Jasper safe houses on the east side, a nondescript brownstone that looked like any other residential building, but housed 6 of Alonso's men and enough weapons to start a small war. Marcus had insisted I learn the locations, the protocols, the emergency procedures. If something happens at the estate, he'd said during one of our training sessions, you need to know where to go. I was in the upstairs office reviewing shipping manifests, learning to read the coded language that turned drug shipments into agricultural imports, when the first explosion shook the building. The window behind me shattered inward, glass turning to deadly confetti. I dove under the desk on instinct, the move one Marcus had drilled into me 100 times. Cover first, assess second, react third. My ears rang from the blast, but through the noise I could hear shouting, gunfire, the distinctive crack of assault rifles that didn't belong to us. Footsteps pounded up the stairs. I pulled the gun from my ankle holster. Alonso had insisted I carry it everywhere, and aimed at the door. My hands were steady. That surprised me. 6 weeks ago, I'd never touched a weapon. Now I was crouching in a war zone, pointing a loaded gun at a doorway, and my hands were steady. The door burst open. I almost pulled the trigger before I recognized Dante, one of Alonso's captains, blood streaming from a cut above his eye. Miss Jasper, we need to move. Now. What's happening? Vane, he hit us with 15 men, maybe 20, professional crew, military-grade weapons. Another explosion rocked the building, closer this time. Dante grabbed my arm, hauled me up. Backdoor exit through the tunnel. Move. We made it to the hallway before the second wave hit. Men in black tactical gear poured through the front entrance, weapons raised. Dante shoved me toward the stairs leading down, returned fire with practiced efficiency. I heard him grunt, saw him stumble, but then his hand was pushing me forward and we were running. The basement tunnel was exactly where Marcus said it would be, hidden behind a false wall in the storage room. Dante punched a code into a keypad, and the wall swung open, revealing a concrete passage that smelled of mold and darkness. Emergency lights flickered to life as we entered. Go straight for 200 yards, take the left fork, you'll come up in the parking garage 3 blocks over. Dante pressed keys into my hand. Black SUV, spot 12, don't stop for anything. You're coming with me. I'm staying to cover your exit. He was bleeding from his side now, a dark stain spreading across his shirt. Miss Jasper, you need to go. If they capture you, if they use you against your father. He didn't finish. He didn't need to. I ran. The tunnel seemed endless, my heels echoing off concrete, my breath coming in ragged gasps. Behind me, I heard more gunfire, muffled by distance and walls. I tried not to think about Dante, about the other men in that safe house, about whether they'd survive long enough for reinforcements to arrive. The left fork appeared. I took it, following the passage up a steep incline until I hit a metal door. I punched the code Dante had made me memorize during our first visit, 4 digits that seemed inadequate protection for my life, and the door clicked open. The parking garage was empty, silent, normal in a way that felt obscene after the violence I'd just escaped. Spot 12. Black SUV. I found it, fumbled with the keys, got the door open. The engine roared to life and I was moving, tires squealing as I navigated the exit ramp, merged into traffic, became just another vehicle in the flow of the city. My phone rang. Alonso's name flashed on the screen. I'm okay, I said it before he could ask. I got out through the tunnel. Dante, my voice cracked. Dante stayed behind. Where are you? His voice was controlled, but I could hear the tension underneath. Driving. I don't know where, just away. Head to the estate. I'm sending an escort to intercept you. Don't stop for anything. Don't trust anyone. A pause. Gwen, are you hurt? I looked down at myself. There was blood on my dress, but I didn't think it was mine. Glass glittered in my hair. My hands had cuts from the window explosion, but they were superficial. I'm fine. You're not fine. None of us are fine. Vane just declared war. The sound of him moving, doors opening, men responding to orders. But you're alive. That's what matters. The escort found me 10 minutes later, 2 SUVs that boxed me in and guided me back to the estate. The gates opened before we arrived, security at maximum alert, men with rifles visible on the walls. This was no longer a mansion. It was a fortress under siege. Alonso met me in the entry hall. He grabbed my shoulders, turned me this way and that, checking for injuries with hands that trembled slightly. When he was satisfied I was intact, he pulled me into an embrace that felt like armor and prison at once. Dante, I asked against his shoulder. Dead, they all are. Vane's men executed anyone who surrendered, burned the safe house to the ground. His voice was flat, emotionless in the way of someone containing rage too big to release. This is my fault. I should have hit him first the night of the gala. Should have put a bullet in his skull and dealt with the consequences. I pulled back, looked at him. I stopped you from doing that. I know. So this is my fault too. The words tasted like ash. 6 men are dead because I wanted to prove I could handle a confrontation, because I thought I could play these games without understanding the cost. No, he gripped my shoulders harder. 6 men are dead because Julian Vane is a rabid animal who needs to be put down. And that's exactly what we're going to do. I thought about Dante's blood on my dress, about the sound of the explosion, the feel of the gun in my hand, the tunnel run in the dark, about how I'd gone from waitress to target in 6 weeks, how I'd learned to shoot and fight and run, but hadn't learned the most important lesson until now. In this world, there was no sitting on the sidelines, no neutral ground, no safety and avoidance. There was only the choice between predator and prey. When do we move against him? I asked. Alonso studied my face, seeing something there that made him nod slowly. Soon, but first you need to understand what you're asking for. This won't be like training. This won't be like defending yourself. This will be hunting another human being with the intent to end his life. He touched my cheek, his tattooed hand gentle against my skin. Are you ready for that? I thought about my mother upstairs, hooked to machines, about the life I'd lost and the life I'd been forced into, about Dante's last words, his last stand so I could escape. Teach me, I said, teach me how to hunt. The call came at 3 a.m. I was awake already, hadn't really slept since the safe house attack 4 days ago. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Dante's blood, heard the explosions, felt the weight of the gun in my hand. So when my door crashed open and Alonso appeared, face twisted with rage and something worse, fear, I was already reaching for my weapon. They have her, 3 words. That's all it took for my world to implode. Vane's men hit the medical wing 20 minutes ago, killed 3 guards, took your mother. They left this. He held out his phone. On the screen was a photo of my mother in a wheelchair, oxygen tube still in place, surrounded by men in masks. She looked small, fragile, terrified. Below the image was a message. Trade yourself for her. Midnight tomorrow. Come alone or she dies screaming. The phone shattered in my hand. I didn't remember grabbing it from him, didn't feel the glass cutting my palm. All I felt was cold, crystalline rage that made everything else seem distant and unimportant. How did they get through? My voice didn't sound like mine. It sounded like Alonso's, controlled violence barely leashed. Inside man, someone on the medical staff, we're still hunting him down. He took the broken phone from my bleeding hand, wrapped it in his handkerchief without seeming to notice what he was doing. I'm going to get her back. You're going to stay here where it's safe. The hell I am. This isn't a negotiation, Gwen. Vane wants me, that's what this is about. He takes her to draw me out, kills us both, and eliminates the Jasper line in one move. It's smart. It's what I'd do. He turned away, started issuing orders into his phone. Mobilize everyone. I want 50 men ready in an hour, full tactical gear. We're hitting every Vane property until we find her. That's suicide. I grabbed his arm, forced him to look at me. You go in guns blazing. He kills her before you get through the front door. You know this. You've done this before. Hostage situations don't end well when you kick down doors. What's your alternative? Let him keep her. Let him torture her to draw me out. His control was cracking. I could see it in the way his hands shook, the way his jaw clenched. This wasn't Alonso Jasper, the crime boss. This was a man watching everything he'd tried to protect slip through his fingers. No, we get her back, but we do it smart. I pulled him toward his office, spread out a map of the city on his desk. Where would he take her? Not a safe house, too isolated, too defensible. He wants you to come. He needs a location where he can control the environment, but you can still reach. Alonso stared at the map, and I watched him shift mental gears, violence giving way to strategy. The Viper's Den, his club downtown. 5 floors, multiple exits, civilian cover, and he controls every inch of it. How many guards? 30 on a normal night. For this, he'll double it, maybe triple. He looked at me. Which is why a frontal assault won't work. We'd lose half our men getting through the front door, and he'd kill Alina the moment shooting started. So we don't assault, we infiltrate. I traced a line on the map. The club has servers, right? Wait staff, bartenders, people moving through the VIP sections with trays and bottles. His eyes narrowed. You want to walk in the front door. I want to be invisible. That's what servers are, background noise, beneath notice, especially to men like Vane who think they're superior to anyone who brings them drinks. I could see it forming in my head, the plan clicking together like puzzle pieces. Vane doesn't know what I look like now. He saw me once at the gala, dressed up and protected. He won't recognize me in a server's uniform with my hair different and cheap makeup. Absolutely not. Listen to me. I planted my hands on the desk. You taught me to shoot, to fight, to think tactically. You said I needed to survive in this world. Well, this is me surviving. This is me using every advantage I have. I pulled up photos on his computer, the club's website, staff photos, promotional materials. Your men create a distraction. Nothing violent, just enough to pull security toward the exits. I go in through the service entrance with the staff change. I'm just another waitress picking up a shift. I find Mom, get her out through the kitchen. Simple. Simple, he laughed without humor. You're describing infiltrating a fortress controlled by a man who wants our entire family dead, finding your mother in a building with 5 floors and 100 rooms, and extracting her without being caught. That's not simple. That's suicide with extra steps. It's better than your plan, which is die gloriously while trying to shoot your way through 60 armed men. I met his eyes. I can do this. I did this job for 6 years. I know how to move through a room without being seen, how to read a floor plan, how to carry things and blend in. This is the one skill I have that you don't. He was quiet for a long moment, studying the map, studying me. When he finally spoke, his voice was rough. If this goes wrong, if they catch you, then we're both dead anyway. At least this way we have a chance. I touched his arm. She's my mother. I'm not sitting here while you throw your life away trying to save her. We do this together or not at all. The war behind his eyes was visible. The father who wanted to protect me versus the strategist who knew I was right. Strategy won. It always did with him. We'll need documentation. Staff ID, uniform, background in their system in case they check. He was already moving, making calls. Marcus can forge the credentials. We have people in the licensing board, and we'll need intel on the interior layout, security camera positions, guard rotations. How long? 18 hours, maybe less. He looked at me. You'll wear a wire. The moment you find her, you signal and we move. No heroics, no improvisation. You get her and get out. Agreed. We worked through the night, planning every detail. Marcus taught me the specific walk servers used at the Viper's Den, faster than normal restaurants, trays held higher. We fabricated an employment history, a reference from a manager who was actually one of Alonso's men. We dyed my hair darker, gave me glasses, changed my makeup to look cheaper, harsher. When I looked in the mirror, I saw someone who could have been me 6 weeks ago, someone invisible. The uniform felt like coming home and going to war at the same time. Black pants, white shirt, black apron. I'd worn this costume for years. But this time, hidden in the apron pocket, was a small knife Marcus had given me. And in my shoe, a tracking device. And on my wrist, disguised as a cheap watch, a panic button that would bring Alonso and 50 armed men crashing through every entrance. "You don't have to do this." Alonso said it one last time as we prepared to leave, the sun just beginning to rise outside. "I can find another way." There is no other way, we both know it. I adjusted my apron, checked my reflection one final time. I stopped being a waitress the night I pointed at your ring, but tonight I need to be one again, just for a few hours, just long enough to save her. He nodded slowly, and in his eyes I saw something I'd never expected to see from him. Pride. "You're more like me than either of us wanted to admit." Is that a compliment or a warning? Both. He handed me a tray, empty except for a single glass. "Go get your mother, Gwen, and then we'll end this war once and for all." I took the tray. It felt right in my hands, familiar, natural. I'd carried thousands just like it, but never one that meant life or death. Never one that would decide if I was really my father's daughter. The service entrance to the Viper's den smelled like every restaurant I'd ever worked in: grease, bleach, and desperation. I clocked in with the evening shift using my forged credentials, nodding to the other servers who didn't give me a second glance. To them, I was just another girl picking up extra money on a Saturday night. Nobody who mattered. The floor manager barely looked at my ID. "Section 3, VIP level. Keep the drinks flowing and your head down. We've got high-profile guests tonight." He handed me a tray and a tablet showing the drink orders. "Don't screw up." I moved through the club like a ghost, muscle memory taking over. The main floor pulsed with music and bodies, but the VIP levels above were quieter, more exclusive. Men in expensive suits occupied private booths, conducting business over bottles that cost more than monthly rent. I served drinks, cleared glasses, smiled without meeting anyone's eyes. Invisible. The wire hidden under my collar transmitted everything back to Alonso, who was positioned 3 blocks away with his entire force. "Second floor clear," I murmured while collecting empty bottles. "Moving to 3rd. His voice crackled in my nearly invisible earpiece. "Security is concentrated on 4 and 5. That's where she'll be." The 4th floor required a different keycard. I lifted one from a distracted manager's jacket while serving his table, the move so smooth he never felt it. Marcus had trained me well. Up the staff stairwell, through the service door, into a hallway lined with private rooms where Vane conducted his real business. The guards were heavier here. I carried my tray like a shield, kept my posture submissive, my eyes down. Just another server bringing champagne to room 7. The guard at the door checked the tablet, nodded me through without really seeing me. Inside, my mother sat in a wheelchair by the window, still connected to her oxygen, looking small and terrified but alive. 2 guards stood watch, bored. They barely glanced at me as I entered. "Champagne service," I said, keeping my voice light, my accent slightly different. "Compliments of Mr. Vane." One guard waved me forward dismissively. I set the tray on the side table, poured a glass with steady hands. Then I pulled the knife from my apron and buried it in the nearest guard's throat before he could react. The training kicked in. Marcus's voice in my head, thousands of hours of practice translating into motion. I dropped the knife, grabbed the dying guard's weapon, put 2 rounds in the second guard's chest before he could raise his own gun. The silencer kept the shots quiet, just muffled coughs in the soundproofed room. My mother stared at me with wide, horrified eyes. "Gwen." "We're leaving, now." I grabbed the wheelchair, moved toward the door. That's when the lights went out. Alonso's distraction had begun. Emergency lighting flickered on, bathing everything in red. Alarms blared. I heard shouting, gunfire from below, his men hitting multiple entry points simultaneously, creating chaos. We made it to the stairwell before Vane's voice echoed through the building's PA system. "Alonso Jasper, I know you're here, and I know you brought your little waitress daughter." His laugh was cruel. "Did you really think I wouldn't recognize her? That I wouldn't have her face memorized after she humiliated me at the gala? I've been waiting for this." The stairwell exploded above us. Men in tactical gear poured down, cutting off our escape route up. I shoved my mother's wheelchair into a side room, returned fire, dropped two before the rest forced me back. We were trapped between floors, Vane's men above and Alonso's assault below. "Third floor, east wing," I gasped into the wire. "We're pinned." "Hold position, I'm coming." The next 3 minutes were the longest of my life. I held the doorway, using everything Marcus taught me: controlled bursts, cover and movement, reloading on muscle memory while my mind stayed cold and focused. My mother was crying behind me, begging me to run, to save myself. But I'd learned something in the past 2 months. I wasn't the girl who ran anymore. Then Alonso was there, crashing through the stairwell with 10 men, cutting through Vane's forces like a scalpel. He reached me, checked my mother, his face a mask of controlled violence. "Where is he?" "5th floor, his private office." I knew because I'd memorized every floor plan. "He'll have an exit ready. We need to move now." We fought our way up. The club had become a war zone, bodies littering the stairs, smoke from flash grenades making it hard to see. Alonso's men were efficient, brutal, overwhelming Vane's security through sheer force and better training. But we'd lost people too. I saw Dante's brother go down, Marcus take a round to the shoulder but keep moving. Vane's office door was reinforced steel. Alonso planted charges, blew it inward. We entered to find him behind his desk, gun already drawn, smile still in place even though he was finished and knew it. The infamous Jaspers, father and daughter together at last. Vane's gun was pointed at Alonso. I have to admit the girl surprised me. Didn't think a waitress had it in her to kill 6 of my men. "Put the gun down, Julian." Alonso's weapon was steady, trained on Vane's head. "You've lost. Your men are dead or running. This is over." "Is it?" Vane's smile widened. "See, I have 1 bullet left, and I can't decide who deserves it more, the man who humiliated me or the daughter who thinks she can play in our world." His gun shifted slightly, pointing at me now. I saw Alonso's finger tighten on the trigger, saw Vane's do the same, saw the future splitting into 2 paths, both ending in death. So I moved first. The gun from the guard I'd killed was still in my waistband. I drew it, fired 3 times center mass while Vane's attention was on making his choice. He went down hard, surprise finally cracking through that polished facade. His gun fell from nerveless fingers, clattered on expensive hardwood. Alonso stared at me, his weapon still raised but no longer needed. "Gwen." "He was going to kill you." My voice was steady. My hands weren't shaking. I'd just taken my first life in cold blood, and all I felt was relief that it was him instead of us. I made a choice. He lowered his gun slowly, moved to Vane's body, checked for a pulse. Found none. When he looked at me again, something had changed in his expression. Recognition. Acceptance. Welcome to the family business. 6 months later, I sat in the private dining room of Bellissimo's, the restaurant where this had all begun. But I wasn't wearing a server's uniform. I was wearing Valentino and the Jasper ring, sitting at the head of the table while a nervous man across from me explained why his payment was late. My mother was in remission. The experimental treatments had worked. She lived at the estate now, safe behind walls and guards and the reputation of what her daughter had become. The nervous man finished his explanation. I nodded, gestured to one of my own servers, because I owned Bellissimo's now, along with 12 other businesses, and she poured more wine into his glass with practiced efficiency. "Mr. Torres," I said, my voice carrying the same controlled authority I'd learned from Alonso. "I appreciate your honesty. The payment can wait until next month, but only next month. Do we understand each other?" "Yes, Miss Jasper, absolutely. Thank you." He left gratefully. I stayed, swirling wine in my glass, looking out at the dining room where I'd once served people who never saw me. Alonso entered through the private entrance, moving slower than he used to. The bullet he'd taken during the assault on Vane's club had done permanent damage. He was retiring, handing the reins to me piece by piece, teaching me to rule instead of serve. "How'd it go?" He sat across from me, and I poured him wine. "He'll pay, they always do." I touched the ring on my finger, the twin to his. "Did you ever think it would end like this? Me in your chair, wearing your crown?" "No." He was quiet for a moment. "Your mother ran to save you from this life, and here you are anyway, deeper in it than I ever was at your age. Sometimes I wonder if we did the right thing." "We survived, that's all that matters." I met his eyes. "You taught me that." He raised his glass. "To survival, then, and to family." I clinked my glass against his. "To family, and to making sure no one ever sees us as easy targets again." Outside the window, the city lights glittered. Somewhere out there, people were making the same mistakes Julian Vane had made, underestimating what they didn't understand, thinking cruelty was the same as strength. Let them learn the hard way. I was done being invisible. I was done being afraid. I was a Jasper now, for better or worse, and in this world that meant everything.